guest, Salman, on the stage, and he's been involved in literally everything in the blockchain space, whether it's about meetup groups, whether it's an access to big individuals in different places. I think one thing is quite important. With the death, maybe death is a bit too strong word, but with the fading effect of Facebook, Google, and everything else, the only thing which is left is these conferences and these meetup groups. They are the most important things, because if you are in these places, that is the only way that you're going to grow your community. That is the only way you're going to meet people. So I think Salman would be able to explain a lot more in that subject. So please come and take the stage. Thank you. Cheers, thank you.
Good afternoon, everyone. And since we are doing a session after the lunch, so let's do a little bit of intro of mine in a visual manner. So everyone will wake up. Right, one simple question. Where I do belong from? I come from Dubai, yeah? So that's easy. I took a flight today from last night, in fact, and just coming straight from the airport to this venue, and been having a pleasure coming in front of you. And we'll be talking about what? Regulatory side of the tokenomics. But before going forward, these are some of the disclaimers. Briefly, I'll share with you that since this space is rapidly growing and regulatory sides are there are so many changes happening in the regulatory sides, and in different regions, regulations means different meanings. So that's why there are several disclaimers that it is subject to be changed, and still it's not by a legal person. By no means I'm a legal person, but being in the space, doing a lot of advisory work with the ITOs, token generation events and all that. Yes, it's a hands-on application. Whatever I'll share with you in next 20 odd minutes, it will be very much hands-on. So what's in it for you? Why we should be focusing on this topic of regulations? It's basically to avoid these people. The regulatory authorities are now strongly catching up the space of the blockchain and tokenomics. And there is a strong reason for that. A lot of scams, Ponzi schemes been happening on the name of blockchain projects or tokenomics. So that's why we need to be very careful. Frenzy period is over. It has been there for like 2 years, but it's getting on the overside. So every month or so, we are getting regulations from a country. FINMA released their regulations a couple of months on February 16th. Just recently we had from Malta, and every now and then you will keep on hearing about regulations from some territory, some part of the world. So this is it, basically we will be going to deal with now. This is the chain of the discussion that first we'll unlock a bit of about tokenomics and what is the relation between tokenomics and the regulatory sides, why we need regulations for the tokenomics, and finally implementing tokenomics regulations. What are the measures, how we can implement the tokenomics regulations. So the first block will be unlocking the tokenomics side. Since morning, there are several speakers who have done this job and gave me a good support on that. They have talked about tokenomics and its elaborative side. So I'll just briefly display that it has the aspects about monetary economics, corporate finance, market finance, and plus the game theory. So all have been discussed since morning. So we'll go on and see what is the driver, what are the drivers basically which is bringing these new age technology, or not just technology, new age economy. So the first driver is the gig economy. I think Henry has briefly touched on it, that we have a gig economy plus the sharing economy, which has contributed to the decentralized economy. So all these sublet economies have brought forward a new economy, which is basically a tokenomics, our economy of the tokens. So these are the three major drivers, and you can see the players as well from the each driver: Airbnb and Netflix for the sharing economy, gig economy. We all are most of us are involved as freelancers, so we are part of that economy as well. And decentralized economy, when we talk about the blockchain applications, tokenomics applications, so we are all part of the decentralized economy as well. So that is given. Tokenomics is a new age, like a wave of a change. It is taking us from the centralized side to the decentralized side, from like a lot of applications have been happening just because of tokenomics. So that is given. But at the same time, do you think that enough penetration has been there for the tokenomic applications? I guess not, because there is a barrier. And that barrier for the mass adoption for the tokenomics is regulations. Rather, I should be saying absence of regulations. Maybe there are many of us who are believing that yes, there is no scope for the regulations, and when we talk about blockchain and tokenomics, no. In fact, it is the other way around. We have to see the behavior, the psychology of the human being. We love when things are regulated. We have more confidence on those phenomena. And that is one thing which is missing at the moment with the tokenomics and the blockchain world space. So the time is for the regulations. Not hard and fast, but yes, of course, we'll see in the coming slides what type of regulations I'm talking about. So the block 2 is about tokenomics and the regulation side. Again, is it a match or a mismatch? Some features for the tokenomics and plus the blockchain space, DLT, are not correlating with the regulations, but most of them are, because it is providing help to the regulations, immutability, fugability. These are all aspects of the blockchain, this tokenomic side, which are always helpful for the regulations. So we can't say that tokenomics and regulations are like oil and water. They can't mix up. In fact, the time has proven that it has become more like a mix and match type of a thing. There is a big scope for the regulations when it comes to the economy of the tokens. Now, what is the ecosystem when we talk about tokenomics and regulations? So there are 4 players basically. First of all, the experts of tokenomics who define the token, its value, hard cap, soft cap, and all those things. And then tech entrepreneurs who are gelling it up with some kind of a project based on the tech. And then adopting individuals and institutions, users in other words. And finally, the central ones are governments and authorities, FINMA, FCA in UK, so on and so forth. So they are also the part of the ecosystem when it comes to the regulations for the tokenomics. So these are the 4 players. Moving forward, what type of regulations are involved? Mainly 2, documentary side and plus the financial side. So you have to be taking care of this incorporation, documentation side, and then the financial matters like AML, KYC, and all that. We'll discuss about them as well in coming slides. Why these regulations are required? So 4 reasons. First reason is it gives safety for everyone. Safety for the participants, investors, users, players, everyone. So it gives a safe net for everyone to play safe. And interoperability, lots of tokens are appearing day after another. Interoperability will be a challenge. So when we will have this regulatory aspect, there is a chance that we will have more interoperability between the tokens and other applications which are on DLT and based on tokenomics. Standardization, that's also a similar aspect, that we need to have a standardized sort of regulations, not just like in China, there is some very hard regulations. In some countries, there are very soft ones. So we need to have a standardization in that regard. All that will contribute for the mass adoption of tokenomics and applications of the tokens. Now, some of the challenges. This is a very important slide where I will be sticking up for a few minutes. That what are the challenges why we are not seeing application of the regulations when it comes to the tokenomics. The first one is its deregulatory characteristics. Which one is that? Disintermediation. So that generally, and there is like a purist view about the blockchain and tokenomics, which always says the shift is against the side of the regulations. So that part is a bit of a hindrance in when it comes to the regulations. The second major hindrance is vagueness in this space, the newness of this space. As I said before, regulations in one country is different, and regulation in other country has a different meaning in for this technology. So you have to have a similar kind of a thing. It's also a complex one as well. It involves a lot of complications in tokenomics, technology, and regulators are always behind when it comes to the tech regulations. So this is a phenomena here as well. Mushroom growth for last 2-3 years especially, we are seeing in every part of the world, there's a lot of mushroom growth happening when it comes to the tokenomics application and plus the DLT applications. Carelessness of project teams, very important. A lot of are not, I will say openly, I'm also involved with several projects. We had a lot of careless movements when it comes to the execution of our projects. We don't give much importance to the regulation side, and that is a big hindrance when it comes to the regulations. And we need a bubble burst as well. If we remember, there was a bubble burst of 1999, and then post that burst, we had the real application of internet. Same will happen when it will be a burst here in this space of blockchain or tokenomics. I think the real valuable projects will start happening after that. People will be more careful about the regulations, about the protocols and all these things. So we need that part as well, the bubble burst. Moving forward for the next one, how we can now implement the regulations when it for the tokenomics. So the first thing is know thy token, know your token. So whether you are a participant, investor, ITO, founder, team member, regulatory authority, whatever, wherever you are coming from, you need to know you need to have a good understanding about the token, what it is basically for. And how we test is one test you can perform on the token to see the application of or utility side of it, whether it is going towards the security or it is still on the utility side. So this came actually for the SEC in 1946. So there was one application which evolved, and Hobby Test is available, and you can perform Hobby Test for your token or the one token you want to invest in or participate in their ITO and all that. These are the two major types. There are 5 types of tokens, but mainly there are 2 types of tokens, and they are the utility tokens and the security tokens. These are the common features. The last one, if you see, the value of using and the value of holding is the real difference between the two. That if it comes to the security, the longer you will hold, the better it will give you the result. But important thing is 99% of these tokens which we are talking about as utility tokens, no matter what you say about their utilities, genuine utilities, eventually they will all become securities. We are playing with like at a very thin layer of difference. And eventually, when I say it's about 2 to 3 years, at max, a lot of regulatory authorities are now assessing about this thin line difference between the security tokens and the utility tokens. So prepare your tokens as, consider them as a security tokens and evolve your regulatory side based on that. Eventually it will be happening in that way. Now these are the 6 regulatory measures as a tokenomics ecosystem player you can adopt to see and implement the regulations. We will go with all these 6 in the next coming slides. Each will have its own slide next up. First is the approach towards tokenomics. Currently, people are thinking it 80% as a technology and 20% as a business process change or change in the economic shift and all that. In fact, it's absolutely other way around. People have to see it as 80% as a business process change or economic shift, and then just 20% of like a technology shift. So this is the first thing you have to have in your mind when it comes to the regulatory side. You have to think it as a proper business, not just a just a technology. The next one is the regulatory labs and sandboxes. In this, basically the role of the core regulatory authorities from the different countries and regions will be important. When we see the top two regulatory authorities for the France, they are coming up with the sandboxes and regulatory labs. What they are doing is providing a safe playground where ITOs and plus a normal blockchain projects or tokenomics projects, they go into those regulatory labs, regulatory labs and test their utility of tokens under that condition. So they are providing that nurturing ground. So whosoever will filter it out from those sandboxes and regulatory labs will be fine enough. So this is a responsibility for the regulators who have to be seeing things in this way. FCA also doing the sandboxes for regulations for blockchain projects and tokenomics. Comply the regulatory framework. Every region, in fact, when it comes to the United States, almost every state has its own regulatory framework for the tokenomics or blockchain projects. And then there are some proper guidelines, and just such are from the FINMA, which I just mentioned that February 16th, they released a very comprehensive, elaborative guidelines for how you can do the ITOs according to the FINMA regulations. Standardization. The technical committee of ISO, which is doing a lot of standardization work in other spaces as well, they're also doing some work to standardize the blockchain work. And now this is the work they are doing for last couple of years. Nothing has been released yet, but it is the work in progress. So this is also something you can have a close monitor this development as well when it comes to this regulations. RegTech. We have heard a lot about other techs, but regulatory technology, legal tech, HR tech, and all that, but RegTech is upcoming big time. So you need to be having a good awareness about the RegTech aspects of happening in the space. And lastly, the most important one is the self-regulations. Whether, again, you are participant of an ITO, ICO, you are doing your own one, you have your own project of tokenomics without ITO or ICO, but still you have to be good in your self-regulations. What are some of the measures for self-regulations? The first one is stop using the word ICO if you are not doing coin. Start understanding the difference between coin and token. Yes, we are using this phrase ICO. 90% of the ICOs are not ICOs, they are basically ITOs. There's a huge difference between the token and the coin. Coin is for basically the native currency on the blockchain. Token is simple. It can be a native, it can't be. And most of the projects are ITOs, are event generation, token generation events. So we need to first of all start, if you have noticed in my talk, I have not used the word ICO. This is the way forward. You have to stop using this word in ICO from your blogs, from your white papers, because you are not doing it. And you are just inviting SEC or other regulatory authorities that, okay, apply the ICO regulations on us, where you are not doing it in that way. So that's the first thing, that stop using the word ICO. If you are genuinely doing ICO, that is another story. Then see, the title here is different, but see the incorporation authority. Wherever you are incorporating your token generation event, you have to be having a good firm command on their regulations. About what? Who is the regulator there? Like in Switzerland, there is a FINMA. What's the status of tokens? In FINMA, there are 3 different types of tokens. In some territories, there are 5 types of tokens. In some, still they have 2 only. So you need to know what type of a token. When you are in Estonia, what is the definition of utility token? What is the definition of securities token, etc. What are the do's and don'ts of doing an ITO or TGE? Again, there are some fair, clean, clear guidelines in most of the territories. You need to have a good understanding about it. And finally, what are the taxation matters? Some territories have already applied it. Some are just gauging up. So you need to be good in this part, this aspect as well. Territory could be anyone. It depends on your business model as well, target audience and all that. But you need to see all these things. Next one is the KYC and these matters. Again, if you go for the title, I think it's a copy-paste mistake. So the title of this tip is basically you have to have a good documentation and financial measures. So KYC for sure, AML for sure, payment operability security, those who are funding in your ITO or TG on your project, they need to be secure enough. And finally, there should be a good personal data protection. That is now, after the Facebook, we all are familiar with this, what can happen with you if you're not good in that aspect. The next one is that cover all of the aspects in your project. Within in-house teams should be there. Normally we have project lead, we have technical lead, we have communications lead, we have business leads. But next time when you will start like participating in some ITO or you yourself want to come up with some ITO, you need to have a legal lead as well, compliance lead as well. So this is very important as when it comes to self-regulations. Your white paper, this is the topic about the white paper. Your white paper should be not having these three things. Avoid mentioning or comparing. A lot of white papers when you'll go through, they are putting this type of a statement, investment opportunity and all that. It should be avoided. Provide information on guarantees to service users, escrow, bank guarantees and all that. And finally, white paper should be very clear. So it's not basically for the investment purpose, it is basically a utility or security and all that. The last is that a lot of legal side, lawyers especially, they are now coming up the white papers. In fact, this is not something I'm creating of like a hype. It is happening in United States, UK. A lot of lawyers are doing just the one thing in their like a work day. They're just exploring the white papers and their relevant ITOs or ICOs. Okay, whether they have delivered whatever they promised, whether there are some kind of a technical problems which they can use to sue or to put the party into the problem, whether there were some security breaches, and lastly, again, violation in the space of securities, whether they were doing a security token but they were trying to like put a blanket as a utility token. So this is happening a big time. So we have to be aware about these legal fraternity side as well. Finally, I'll just chain all the blocks, do the review what we have gone through in this presentation. We unlocked the tokenomics side, its relationship with the tokenomics, why it is required for the tokenomics, and finally we saw some of the challenges and measures for the regulations in tokenomics. Last slide. People always say that, okay, there is a need for regulations or not. I say in this very simple analogy, if tokenomics is grass, then regulation is lawn maker. What is grass basically? If it is not like move regularly, it becomes wild. It will not be beautiful. It will not look very good. So if we want to have a good lawn, we have to have a lawn mower. And in that way, if we want to have a good tokenomics project, we have to have regulations in place. Self-regulations are from some other regulatory authority. Thank you very much.